Thanks, Lucy. The next reader will put her as a table. The next reader is Jeffrey Harrison.
I was fortunate enough to take Kenneth Koch's imaginative writing class in 1976-77 with Daniel Meltzer, Jessica Greenbaum, who are right over there, and Steve Ackerman, another wonderful poet. I'm not going to say much, I'm just going to read two poems. I'm going to read Kenneth Koch's poem Fate from The Burning Mystery of Anna in 1951, and then I'm going to read a poem of my own that's about a Kenneth Koch-inspired dream. Fate. In a room on West 10th Street in June of 1951, Frank O'Hara and I and Larry Rivers. I actually do not remember if Larry was there, but he would be there later, some winter night, on the stairway, sitting, waiting, a demented telephone, as Frank said in an article about him. But then, on the stairs, unhappy in a youthful manner, much happened later. Frank, John Ashbery, Jane Freilacher, and I had just come back from Europe for the first time. I had a bottle of Irish whiskey I had bought in Shannon, where the plane stopped, and we drank it, and I told my friends about Europe. They'd never been there, how much I'd loved it. I was so happy to be there with them, and my Europe too, which I had, Greece, Italy, France, Scandinavia, and England. Imagine having all that the first time. The walls were white in that little apartment, so tiny, the rooms are so small, but we all fitted into one and talked. Frank so sure of his talent, but didn't say it that way. I didn't know it till after he was dead, just how sure he had been. And John, unhappy and brilliant and silly, and of all of them, my first friend. We had met at Harvard. They tended, except Frank, to poo-poo what I said about Europe. And even Frank was more interested, but ever polite. When sober, I couldn't tell it, but barely tended. They tended to be much more interested in gossip, such as who had been sleeping with whom, and what was selling and going on. Wherein I was a little hurt, but used to it. My expectations for my friendships were absurd, but that way I got so much out of them. In fact, it wasn't causal, but the two ways at once. I was never so happy with anyone as I was with those friends at that particular time, on that day with that bottle of Irish whiskey, the time 4 in the afternoon, or 3 in the afternoon, or 2 or 5, I don't know what. And why do I think that my being so happy is so urgent and important? It seems some kind of evidence of the truth, as if I could go back and take it, or do I just want to hold what there is of it now? Thinking says hold something now, which is why despite me and liking me that afternoon, who was sleeping with whom was best, and my happiness, picking up a glass, Frank, what was it like, Kenny? Ah, for my being vulnerable, only sometimes I can see the vulnerableness in others I have ever known, faults with them or on the telephone. The sexual adventures were different, each person at work, autobiography all the time, plowing forward. If there's no question of movement, as there isn't, no doubt of it, may I not, I may, find this minute extraordinary. I can do nothing with it but write about it. 240 West 10th Street, Jane's apartment, 1951 or 52, I can never remember. Yes, it was later or much earlier that Larry sat on the stairs. And John said, hum, and hum, and hum. I don't remember the words. Frank said, unhun. Jane said, unhun. And Larry, if he was there, said boobly-boop. So always said Larry, or almost. And I said, Aix-en-Provence, me, new sense of these, that London, Firenze, Florence, now Greece, and unhun, boop. Soon I was at Larry's, and he's proposing we take a house in Easton. What? For the summer, where's that? And already that afternoon was dissipated, another begun, many more of them. But that was one I remember. I was in a special position, as if it were my birthday. But they were in fact as if my birthday, or that is to say, who cares if he grows older, if he has friends like these? I mean, who does not care? The celebration is the cause of the sorrow and not the other way around. I also went to Venice and to Vienna. There were some people who drove me there. New sunshine, Frank says, let's go out, Jane, John, Frank, and I. Larry was not there, I now remember. Ben mysteriously left. This is called Amnesia. Everything in it is true. In my dream, someone mentioned Kenneth Koch's great poem, Amnesia. I don't remember that when I said, but suddenly as though projected on the air, I could see the first few lines. I decided to go home and find the rest of the poem, but couldn't remember where home was. When I woke up, of course, I was home, but I didn't remember those lines from the poem. And when I looked through Kenneth's books, I didn't find a poem called Amnesia, or even To Amnesia, one of his apostrophes, which might have begun, I'm sorry I forgot to write a poem about you until now. Remembering that the internet remembers everything, supposedly, I Googled Kenneth Koch plus Amnesia and found a poem entitled Amnesia in the online magazine Jacket by the Australian poet John Kinsella, but dedicated to Kenneth Koch. Weird. Was I still dreaming? No. I liked the poem, but couldn't help thinking it wasn't quite as much fun as Kenneth Koch's Amnesia would be. A poem that exists only in my dream and wherever dreams go when you wake up. A poem whose first few lines I briefly knew but can't retrieve, though I can picture him writing it in his headlong scrawl. And I won't forget that in my dream, someone, though I can't remember who, called it great, unforgettable.